Hi, I'm gonna do 3 videos basically talking about fog of war for RTS Engine. Hopefully you've got your RTS Engine install updated to 2023.0.2 because the fog of war module is at that version number as well, and there's been some changes to that which actually has sorted out a few issues. Um, so before I get talking about the install of Fog of War module and the requirements for the asset, obviously this asset, there is 2 Fog of War assets that can be used with RTS Engine. So before you go and buy one, if you've bought them anyway, then you can skip this bit or just listen to me rabbit on for a couple of minutes. So you have the Fog of War asset. So this one that's recommended. Well, it's the only one that works with the Fog of War module, and that's this one by Brendan LK. You might be put off by the price because it's actually because I'm in the UK, it shows euros. I don't know why, but it's it's €5 more than the Pixel Perfect Fog of War. Okay, um, differences between the two. So let's do the first couple ones quicker. Um, The guy, Milk Drinker 01, has a Discord channel and is quite active on that. So for support, that's pretty good. Has been updated quite recently as opposed to this one, which last release was in 2021. Now, there are some issues with this version, even though it's slightly dearer, but there's also issues with this version running with RTS Engine. I will go through the problems I've got with this one, and which is why I am not using it. And then I'll talk about the support that I've actually got from Brendan. Okay, so Pixel Perfect Fog of War, how do we get that working with RTS Engine? So once you're a verified member, most of us are, everyone is pretty much, in the Discord channel for RTS Engine, there is a community resources script where a few of us have actually shared stuff. I actually shared these videos I do in there. And Marius did a Pixel Perfect Fog of War script that will install what you need on your units and your building prefabs to work. You follow the instructions, which is basically the quick start guide is a Google Doc. And that's how you set things up for that. So it talks about your shaders, your volumes, and stuff like this. What doesn't it work on? And that's the first thing. So my specific requirements, everyone's is different, is I have low spec hardware apart from my actual development machine, which is a MacBook Pro M1 Apple Silicon running OS X. I can't remember now. Oh no, wrong one. Let's go back this Mac. Oh no, yeah, that should have done that. There we go. 13.6. It has metal graphics and so doesn't need OpenGL. So this actually does work on this one. It works in Windows as well. It does not work in Linux. OpenGL 4.5, which is the latest version on Ubuntu 22.0.4. The whole screen is upside down. It doesn't work on any older Macs. I have an iMac that can't be updated higher than High Sierra. It has a Radeon HD graphics card and is OpenGL 4.1. It is completely black. Well, it's sort of like an off black screen, so you can't see anything and it doesn't clear the fog. So that being said, I messaged the guy. He actually did respond and he said, yep, I know there's some issues with Mac. I know he's working on version 2, so maybe later it might work, but for now, we're not using this. I'm not using this one because it's no good for my on all the platforms I tested. And this one does to a point, and I'll come back to that in a minute. So what did I test this on? So when I test, I basically create clean projects. So if I find something or I find an issue, I'll create a new project and I'll duplicate what I've been doing in my own game and figure out what's going on. And there you go. So I actually did this with the Pixel Perfect Fog of War to start with. And then I was like, well, no, I'm having issues. It doesn't do this. I'm not getting that great support, so I'll do it. So I did the same tests, with the exception of the Android test, with the Pixel Perfect Fogger Wall, and that's how I know not to use it. So for me, I build on this MacBook Pro, and I build my Windows, Linux, and Mac binaries on that. I build my iOS versions on that, and yesterday I tested it on Android because I had a Lenovo Tab M9, which is running Android 11, turn up, which is only about 120 quid, and that's pounds if you're not English, if not British. Quid is, yeah. Anyway, so I've tested this on Windows 7 NVIDIA with an NVIDIA graphics card, a GTX 580. That Windows machine is also dual booted to run Linux natively as well. So that's running Ubuntu 20.04, which has OpenGL 4.5. So again, NVIDIA graphics card, GTX 580. I originally had two of those SLI'd in, but one of them died. So we're talking it's nearly 20 years old, that machine. I can't afford a new one with a Ryzen 9. So if my game works on my platforms, if you've got the latest hardware, it should be flying along, hopefully. So I did a Apple Silicon build, which is Ventura 13.6, and I did a Intel only build to run on my iMac, which is OpenGL 4.1. And then I also did a combined Apple Silicon and combined Apple Silicon and Intel build. So that works as well. And I ran it in Linux 18, so Ubuntu 18.04, LTS, and 20.04 in a Parallels virtual machine image on my iMac. And due to restrictions of Parallel tools, it will only run OpenGL 3.3. And the Fog of War asset by Brendan works. So if you want to, if you don't want to say to people, well, I'm sorry, you bought the game, you're running old hardware, tough. Or you have to sort of go back to the refund and stuff. A lot of people don't look at the minimum specs. I got caught that out on years ago with a game that was actually built for Macs, and then they said, no, you need OS X 10.14, and it was a shame, and that was Dungeons. So anyway, I've also built this for iOS, running iOS 16.4 and Android, and I tested my actual game on that Android tablet yesterday, and the Fog of War works. So now I've been rabbiting on for 8 minutes about that. So that's what I tested that on. Like I say, I did the same builds with the Pixel Perfect, and it only worked on the Windows 7 and my MacBook Pro. So 2 out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I didn't really test Android, but say 7, 2 out of 7 platforms, low spec platforms that it didn't work, it worked on, as opposed to the Fog of War by Brendan, worked on all of those. So in my case, me purchasing that earlier this year as opposed to me purchasing that a couple of years ago, yeah, at the moment that was a waste of money, but he might have it updated later. So at the moment, from the asset store, it's a version 1.24, and the latest release is in 2021. Now, this works in the standard legacy rendering pipeline, so he calls it legacy. Some people call it SRP or built-in. So that the Fog of War actually works straight out of the box for that. If you want to use the post-processing V2 stack or URP, I will talk about these in other videos. But what you would need to do is you would need to scroll down to the bottom of this page, click on contact, email Brendan and say, look, this is my invoice number for when I bought the asset, so you can verify that you've actually paid for it. Could I have the updated project that I've seen you've asked people to email them on the forum with the fixes. He has done a lot of changes to the asset. I don't know why it's not on the asset store or why it's been updated. Maybe he's still waiting for other feedback on bug reports and stuff like that. But it does work. He's done, like I say, done a lot of changes. So I have run this in URP and post-processing with the version 1.25 that he will email to you, and it works on all of those platforms in URP. And I know a lot of us are actually using URP. So with that said, let's jump into the demo or the RTS Engine demo. So let's do that. Let's just grab that up that way so you can see a few things. Okay, so when you've bought this asset, Fog of War, you need to import that into your project. So hopefully people know how to do this by now. So when you go import, I've already got this imported, as you can tell, but it will tick, as by default with all assets, it will tick every single thing. You do not want HDRP. You don't want the post-processing V2 stack. Well, I'll cover this in another video about the post-processing V2 stack. And you don't want the URP. I typically don't bother about the samples on the legacy one. And again, I will show you that on the other ones regarding that. So you don't need any of those. The user guide will actually be ticked. So don't worry about the samples, URP, post-processing, or HDRP, but everything else will be there. And then you click import. So when that imports in, you will have your Fog of War folder like that, and it will show you your user guide and your core folder. And inside your core folder, you have your shaders and a load of scripts, obviously, and the editor. I just import it by default just in case something required, and the legacy folder. Now, with the latest version of what Brendan's actually updated, he's changed some of that into pipelines. So you've got a pipeline rendering folder. We're not doing that. This is the default install. So you would have updated your RTS Engine to 2023.0.2, and you would have installed the latest Fog of War module. Now, the developer has actually done a stellar job with this update. It sounds really silly, but he has done a lot. He's basically done a demo of it, which is the same demo of the main demo. So he's actually updated all the prefabs and all the units to use Fog of War. So you don't have to follow the manual through to do the install. Obviously, with your own project for legacy rendering, follow the steps in here. I'm not going through a lot of this. I am going to quickly talk about a couple of things. So you'd want to do and make sure you got your legacy, Fog of War legacy, added to your main camera and the mini cam UI. If you're not using the snapshot on your mini map, take snapshot, then you will want to add the Fog of War legacy script here to your camera. Okay, but the mini map with snapshot, it saves a little bit of overhead, I believe. So like I say, everything is set up so you don't have to actually follow through the documentation. It's worth reading through so you know what you're playing with. A couple of things in the documentation that will be or could be or should be removed is this image, the same visibility objects. It won't show like that anymore because the model connections, child index 0, 1 and 2 and all that, etc., was to do with version 2022, where we had model caching, and so that is now deprecated. There is visible post discovery. Ignore that. It doesn't do anything on the version of 2023. It does on the previous version. So you can ignore that. I will show you how to keep objects visible post discovery. Right. So I've been rabbiting on for 15 minutes. I have a limit of 30-minute videos because of YouTube. They stopped that a while back. I think it's 30 minutes still, due to the amount of subscribers I don't have. So let's jump into a few things. Settings. So the map resolution. This confused me a little bit. I'm going to admit that. It turns out it's got nothing to do with the actual size of the fog area. What it has to do with is the quality of the fog itself. So the lower it is, the less resources it's going to use on your GPU and the CPU possibly. Think of it of like Minecraft, going between Minecraft and say Crysis, where you've got really high def graphics or you've got blocky, grainy graphics. And I'll show you quickly what I mean by that. Let's go 64, 64. Yeah, this is the live test because I actually didn't do this in there when I was playing around, but I have set it up. So as you can see, it's sort of like, let's get them up there. As you can see, it's like smaller squares, okay? So now let's run this at 1024. Okay, you can see that edge is a little bit neater, nicer, and so you can see the quality. So yeah, that is down. That's going to be down to your own preferences. I'm going to say. So default, I'd probably say 256 is fine. I've got some good results on 256. Map resolution. So that's that setting. So map size. Sorry, not map resolution. Map size is the size of this. So 200 by 200. If you put it down to 100, so it's not an X by Y. It is literally just how it's going to display like that. So you could have it smaller, say 140, but then obviously if your camera's at a slightly odd angle down here, you could see this won't be covered by fog, so it'll look odd. So you want to make sure that's enlarged enough to cover your terrain or your ground terrain. Offset, map offset, that is literally, let's put that to 0. So, and I'll put that to 0 as well. So basically it will be the center. So you need to offset this to cover your terrain. So we'll put that back to where it was by default. Visuals, so point filtering. It's basically almost like using blocks instead of like squares, instead of trying to make them more rounded, if that makes sense. Have a play with that, see what you think. Like I say, there's no right or wrong on this. That is down to you and how you like things to look. I have had some really good results with doing that. So I'll show you that quickly. So it's quite low blur with blur. And as you can see, that looks a little bit smoother there. And it does look pretty good. Obviously, you can get some really fun effects when you're changing this around. So as you can see, that just changed there with that one, and let's put that. Let's go nuts. And then as you can see, that we've got the fog is a little bit more. I don't know. I don't like that, to be fair. But as you can see, it's clearing. I don't like that. But that will give you an idea of some of the settings you can do. Okay, so you want to update the units, and you want to update everything automatically, and you want to output to texture because that's how things work. So partial fog amount. This is the fog regrowth. So let's. I'm going to stick that to 1 for the moment, and 1 is representing like it basically it clears it. So you'll get no fog regrowth. Okay, and obviously the lower or more that way will be the darker it gets. On the regrow itself. As you can see, that's still quite dark, but it isn't actually black. Let me go up here with the trees and things. So as you come back and we'll scroll over, you can still sort of see those rocks. So let's put that to 0.6 for now. Actually 0.5. Leave that there, reinitialize, and then every time you reinitialize, it's good because you can test this live without having to change things. As those rocks, and as you can see, so you notice those trees just disappeared again, okay, because they're part of the resource. So that would be down to the minimum fog setting on the units and on the trees themselves. So tree wood, as you can see, the minimum fog is 120. Now the way it works is your alpha channel is 0 to 255. 255 being your fog is actually pure black, and 0 there's no fog at all. And that's set on your fog or legacy script attached to your cameras. Okay, so that's your alpha channel down there. Actually, just move that over that way, so you can see that's your alpha channel there. Excuse me. So 255 divided by 2, which is 0.5, is 127.5. So we know these trees are only going to show if the minimum fog strength is 120. So if we set this to 127.5, which you would not want to do it that precise, they would then show once you've gone through and cleared the fog and your fog regrows at 0.5. So by default, I mean, a really good setting to play with is 0.6. This is depending on if you want certain objects to be shown after you've cleared the fog. So in terms of me, 0.6 is fine. I tend to have 0.7. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to quickly show you some prefabs. Now on the barracks, I've got this one set at 70 for minimum fog strength. And the same visibility objects is the model itself. Now, if I just bring that open actually properly, so that is your model, that's your construction model and the barracks. So only if you've cleared the fog will these be shown. Okay, you could have separate things on there. It depends how you want to do it. So just have a play around with that. Like I say, you could add extra things. So maybe like your fire for when the building's on fire and stuff like that. Depends how you're doing it. So in this case, I'm watching time here at the moment. Minimum fog strength on that is 70. On the granary is at 110, and the town centre is at 120, and the university is at 120, and our villages is at 90, and our light infantry is at 90. Now I like Age of Empires, so when you send out your scouts to go and clear the fog, after they've gone through, say, the enemy's base and they come back, the buildings are still visible. I think they disappear over a period of time, but you sort of can see the buildings, but you can't see what they're doing. You can't see how many soldiers they've built up until you go back into it, and I actually like that. So let's go back into play this, and we'll just show you those settings, how they affect the fog with the fog regrow. So we're going to try and avoid the orcs. Now, let's give that a little bit of a pick me up, let that run for a few minutes. Just help the NPCs get on and build some buildings, right? And let's go and have a scoot around. Right, so we're just going to try and go round. So we can see the farm, we can see villages, we can see some houses going up. No, stay away from there. We don't want their soldiers coming and attacking him, because I'll have to go and get another one. So we're going to run around this way, just clear some of that fog. and there's a barracks, and we're going to run away quick, and we're going to sit him there. While he's doing that, you can see some of the buildings have stayed visible, but the barracks did not. The town centre did, the farm did, but the units didn't. So we don't know what they're doing, and we can't see. So that is literally down to your fog regrow and your hiding fog settings, or the minimum fog settings. So yeah, that's what you need to do. Although typically the granary, we shouldn't really see that being built. Although if that was placed before we cleared the fog or the minimum fog strengths, so it might be a bug to report in. It should be hidden until that's actually been built or something like that. But that might have been already placed on the map as it was going through. So that's basically the run through on that. Now, it works. There is some quirky things you need to just play around depending on what you want and how you want your fog of war. And like I say, it works with the other rendering pipelines that I did, and it works on all of those test builds, in case you wanted to read that again. So yeah, I really need to make that box bigger. It doesn't really do that much. In case you're like running this on a low res. So yeah, at the end of the day, I prefer the one by Brendan. And like I say, try it with the Legacy first. Make sure you're happy with it. I know it's €5 more, $5 more, depending on what your currency is. But the fact that it does work with URP and post-processing, and I will show you those in 2 separate videos. There is some code changes. I'm not going to recode that and show you that in those videos again, down to time constraints, but I am going to be sharing the scripts and putting them on the community resource on Discord channel for RTS Engine. And again, this is with RTS Engine 2023.0.2 and the Fog of War module 2023.0.2. I hope that was helpful, and yeah, any feedback, just plonk it on with the video on Discord in the community resources, or with the scripts I'm going to upload probably hopefully at the end of this day. Okay, that's great. Thanks for your time. Bye.